On a cold April night, a massive, supposedly unsinkable British ocean liner is slicing through the North Atlantic. Suddenly, the starboard side of the vessel violently scrapes against a jagged wall of ice. The ship is doomed. The technical specs of the wreck are unsettlingly precise. The vessel is driven by a massive triple-screw propeller system. It strikes the ice exactly 400 miles from Newfoundland. And because of a fatal shortage of lifeboats, the casualties are catastrophic. These details belong to a ship called the Titan, the centerpiece of Morgan Robertson's novella, Futility. Robertson published this story in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic ever touched the water. This comparison reveals an exact mathematical overlap. Robertson's vessel measured 800 feet, hitting the ice at 25 knots. The Titanic measured 882 feet at 22 knots. Safety equipment is identical, 24 lifeboats versus 20, a dangerous fraction. This degree of precision transforms a simple engineering failure into something that looks, to the naked eye, like a paranormal event. Morgan Robertson was a veteran sailor who had spent a decade in the merchant marine before he turned to writing. He claimed his stories weren't his own creations. Instead, Robertson told people that a disincarnate spirit used him as an instrument, providing the inspirations for his work. When the Titanic went down and the parallels to his 1898 novella were discovered, the spiritualist community hailed Robertson as a clairvoyant. Did a spirit entity actually provide a window into the future, or does the real answer lie in the systemic truths of the industrial era? During the Edwardian era, shipyards were locked in an unregulated arms race. Each company was desperate to build the largest, most luxurious vessel ever conceived. Robertson was a highly observant maritime expert. He spent his career watching the trajectory of this technology and identifying where it would eventually break. The name of the ship is the first clue. At the time, the White Star Line already had a marketing monopoly on the "ike" suffix, naming their vessels the Oceanic, the Teutonic, and the Majestic. Choosing the name Titan for a fictional superliner was a logical guess. It fit the era's obsession with Greek mythology and linguistic markers for massive scale. Stripped of its supernatural mystique, Robertson's vision becomes the calculated observation of an industry expert watching a predictable trend. The actual catalyst for the disaster was an obsolete regulation in the British Board of Trade Legal Code. This graph maps ship tonnage against required lifeboats. The law required 16 lifeboats for any ship over 10,000 tons. As ships quadrupled in size, requirements stayed flat. Robertson calculated that following this legal minimum guaranteed a massacre. This red gap was a mathematical certainty. This diagram shows a head-on collision. Striking an obstacle nose first activates the front armor, keeping the vessel afloat. To ensure his fictional ship sank, Robertson knew it required a glancing blow. A sideswipe collision bypasses bow armor, tearing open multiple compartments along the hull. 14 years later, Captain Edward Smith would make this exact tactical error, attempting to port around the iceberg instead of striking it head-on. There is a caveat to the math. Following the 1912 disaster, publishers revised the novella, inflating the fictional ship's weight to match the Titanic and making the coincidence appear even more impossible to a grieving public. Robertson didn't predict the unpredictable. He calculated the result of bad laws and corporate arrogance. Human ego and the prioritization of luxury over safety are the true architects of this wreckage. The disaster illustrates the danger of placing a blind, unquestioning faith in technology. Robertson wrote Futility as a warning, built on exact data points shipping executives were already ignoring. This historical overlap remains unsettling today, especially as we move through our own era of rapid technological scaling. Just as Robertson spotted the lifeboat gap, modern observers are identifying the same patterns in our current systems. They see code vulnerabilities in AI, maintenance gaps in aerospace, and fragile nodes in digital grids. They are running the same calculations on our modern hubris. The line between fiction and prophecy is surprisingly thin. Anticipating a catastrophe requires no crystal ball, only the willingness to look at human hubris and run the numbers.